The alarm bells rang across the Velothi capital city. In the tall glass towers that reached toward the purple sky, millions of peaceful beings stopped their daily work and looked up at the screens showing terrible news. Yun-Woo pressed his long fingers against the control panel in the central communication center. His blue skin was pale with fear as he read the message that had just arrived from space. The words were simple but deadly. "Surrender your world in 7 days, or we will destroy everything." The message came from the Korthak Empire. Hyun-Woo had heard stories about them from other worlds. They were conquerors who traveled from star to star, taking planets and killing anyone who said no. They had already destroyed dozens of peaceful civilizations. "How many ships do they have?" asked Soo-jin as she walked into the room. She was the lead diplomat for their world and spoke for their people in times of crisis. Her voice was calm, but Hyun-Woo could see the worry in her large eyes. "Our sensors count over 300 warships at the edge of our system," Hyun-Woo replied. "They're just waiting there, like hungry beasts watching prey." Soo-jin sat down heavily in a chair. The Velothi people had never fought a war. Their world was peaceful, with gentle animals and soft weather. They had spent thousands of years building beautiful cities and creating amazing technology, but they had never needed weapons or armies. "What can we do?" she asked. "We have fast ships and good shields, but nothing that can fight an entire war fleet." Hyun-Woo turned back to his computer. His job was to study old information and find solutions to problems. For days, he had been searching through ancient databases, looking for anything that might help them. "There's something here," he said, pointing to his screen. "An old emergency protocol from the early days of space travel. It's called the Galactic Distress Signal." Soo-jin moved closer to look. The file was very old, written in several different languages. "What does it do?" "It sends out a call for help to any civilization that has the power to respond to military threats," Hyun-Woo explained. "The signal travels faster than normal space messages. It reaches every corner of the galaxy." "But who would answer?" Soo-jin asked. "And what if whoever comes is worse than the Korthak?" Hyun-Woo didn't have an answer for that. The protocol was old, created by species that no longer existed. There was no way to know who might receive the signal or what they would do. Through the tall windows, they could see the first signs of panic in the city below. People were running in the streets. Some were trying to leave the planet in small ships, but most had nowhere to go. The Korthak fleet was blocking all the safe routes out of the system. "We have to try," Hyun-Woo said. "If we do nothing, our people will die in 7 days. At least this gives us a chance." Soo-jin nodded slowly. As the diplomatic leader, she had to make the hard choices. "Show me how to activate it." Hyun-Woo brought up the control system, the distress signal needed, special codes, and a reason for the call. He began typing. "We are a peaceful people under attack by an aggressive empire. We have no weapons to defend ourselves. Millions of innocent lives will be lost. Please help us." The computer asked for confirmation 3 times. Once they sent the signal, there would be no way to take it back. Anyone in the galaxy with the right equipment would know that the Velothi were weak and asking for help. "Do it," Soo-jin said. Hyun-Woo pressed the final button. Deep below the city, powerful transmitters came to life. The signal shot out into space, traveling faster than light, carrying their message of desperation to the stars. Days passed with no response. The Korthak ships moved closer to their world. They began sending down smaller ships that destroyed satellites and space stations. The attacks were meant to show the Velothi that resistance was impossible. On the 5th day, Hyun-Woo was working late in the communication center when his equipment picked up something strange. A new signal was coming from the edge of their system, but it wasn't from the Korthak fleet. "Soo-jin, come quickly," he called over the intercom. She arrived within minutes, still wearing her formal diplomatic robes. "What is it?" Someone answered our distress call, Hyun-woo said, his voice full of excitement and fear. Ships are coming. A lot of them. On the screen, they could see new contacts appearing at the edge of their solar system. The signatures were different from anything in their databases. These ships were smaller than Korthak vessels, but seemed to move much faster. How many? Soo-jin asked. Hyun-woo counted the signals as they appeared. 50, 70, 100 ships. And they're still coming. The newcomers didn't send any messages. They just appeared in space and began moving toward the Korthak fleet. Their ships had a strange design, angular and aggressive, like metal sharks swimming through the darkness. Who are they? Soo-jin whispered. Before Hyun-woo could answer, an explosion lit up the space near their world. One of the Korthak ships had just been destroyed by weapons fire. Then another explosion, and another. The battle had begun. Through their instruments, they watched as the unknown ships attacked the Korthak fleet with incredible speed and precision. The Korthak had expected an easy conquest, but now they were fighting for their lives against an enemy they had never seen before. Try to contact them, Soo-jin ordered. Hyun-woo sent out signals on every frequency he could think of. For several minutes, there was no response. Then, a voice came through their speakers. It spoke in perfect Velathi language, though with a strange accent. This is Commander Tae-min of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress signal. Are you the ones who called for help? Terran. Hyun-woo had never heard of them. He looked at Soo-jin, who nodded for him to answer. Yes, we are the Velathi people. The Korthak Empire is trying to destroy our world. We have no weapons to defend ourselves. There was a pause. Then the voice came back, and it sounded angry. No weapons? They're attacking civilians? Yes, Hyun-woo replied. They gave us 7 days to surrender, or they would kill everyone on our planet. Another pause. When the voice returned, it was cold and hard. Understood. Stay in your cities and keep your people safe. This will be over soon. The communication ended. On their screens, they watched as more explosions bloomed in space. The battle was getting more intense, but it was clear that the Korthak fleet was losing badly. Who are these Terrans? Soo-jin asked. Hyun-woo was already searching his databases. I can't find anything about them. They're not in any of our records. They watched the battle continue through the night. By morning, half of the Korthak fleet was destroyed or fleeing. The unknown Terran ships pursued them without mercy, hunting down every enemy vessel that tried to escape. As the sun rose over their city, Hyun-woo received another message from Commander Tae-min. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Our main fleet will arrive soon to ensure your safety. We need to talk. Soo-jin looked out at their beautiful city, where people were beginning to come out of their hiding places. They were safe, but everything had changed. They had called out to the galaxy for help, and someone had answered, someone very dangerous. The Velathi had always believed that the universe was full of peaceful civilizations like themselves. Now they knew the truth. There were predators out there, species that had learned to fight and kill with terrible efficiency, and for some reason these predators had decided to protect them. What happens now? Soo-jin asked. Hyun-woo didn't know. They had asked for help and received it, but they had no idea what the price would be. All they could do was wait and hope that their saviors were truly here to help and not to conquer. In space above their world, the Terran ships continued their patrol, ensuring that no Korthak vessel could threaten the peaceful planet below. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Ji-hai stood at the center of Earth's War Command, watching as reports flooded in from the edge of known space. The distress signal had reached Earth's communication networks 3 days ago, and every military leader in the solar system was now gathered in the underground facility beneath Seoul. Show me the tactical analysis, Ji-hai ordered. General Dong-hyun activated the large display screen. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with a small red dot marking the Velothi system. Around it, enemy ships were marked in threatening orange. The Korthak Empire, Dong-hyun said, reading from his report. They've been expanding for over 200 years. Our deep space scouts have been tracking them, but they've never come close to human territory before. What do we know about their methods? Asked another voice from across the room. Captain Minho stepped forward. He commanded one of Earth's most powerful warships and had experience fighting alien threats. They're classic bullies. They attack peaceful worlds that can't fight back. When they encounter resistance, they destroy everything. Cities, farms, even children's schools. Ji Hae's expression grew cold. She had spent her entire career protecting Earth and its colonies from threats. The idea of an empire that targeted peaceful civilians made her stomach turn with anger. "And the Velothi?" she asked. "Complete pacifists," replied Dr. Ye Jin, the fleet's intelligence officer. "They've never fought a war in their recorded history. Their technology is advanced, but it's all designed for peaceful purposes. Exploration, medicine, communication. They literally don't have weapons." General Dong-hyun pulled up images of the Velothi world. Beautiful cities of glass and metal stretched across continents, covered in purple forests and blue lakes. Millions of peaceful beings lived there, creating art and studying science. "They're going to be slaughtered," Captain Minho said quietly. 300 Korthak warships against a civilization that doesn't even know how to fight." The room fell silent. Everyone present had seen the reports from other worlds that the Korthak had conquered. They left nothing alive. Entire species had been wiped out for the crime of being weak. Admiral Ji Hae looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. These were people who had spent their lives preparing for threats to humanity, but now they were being asked to risk human lives for strangers on the other side of the galaxy. "The Galactic Council won't act," General Dong-hyun said. "They're too afraid of the Korthak Empire. They'll send diplomatic protests and emergency supplies, but no military help." "Cowards," Captain Minho muttered. Ji Hae walked to the center of the room. As the senior admiral of Earth's defense forces, the decision was ultimately hers to make. She could order the fleet to prepare for deployment, or she could decide that Earth's safety came first. "How long to reach their system?" she asked. 3 weeks at maximum hyperspace speed," replied the navigation officer. "We'd have to take the third fleet, 50 cruisers, 20 dreadnoughts, and support vessels. That's almost half our deep space fleet," General Dong-hyun pointed out. "If something threatens Earth while we're gone—" "Earth has the home defense fleet and the orbital platforms," Ji Hae said. "We can protect ourselves." She looked up at the image of the Velothi world. In her mind, she could see the children playing in those beautiful cities, the scientists working in their laboratories, the artists creating wonders that no one would ever see if the Korthak had their way. The Velothi sent out a distress signal. "Asking for help," she said. "They didn't ask for trade agreements or diplomatic talks. They asked for someone to save them from being murdered." Dr. Yejin nodded. "The signal protocol is ancient. It was designed for exactly this situation when peaceful people face extinction. And we have the power to answer," Captain Minho added. Admiral Ji Hae made her decision. "General Dong-hyun, prepare the third fleet for immediate deployment. Captain Minho, your battle group will lead the advance force. I want the fastest ships there within 2 weeks." "Yes, ma'am," both officers replied. "Dr. Yejin, I want complete intelligence files on Korthak military capabilities. I want to know how they fight, what weapons they use, and how to kill them efficiently." As the orders went out, the massive war machine of Earth began to move. Deep in space docks orbiting Earth and Mars, crews rushed to prepare warships for battle. Weapons were loaded, engines were checked, and soldiers said goodbye to their families. Captain Minho returned to his ship, the dreadnought Soul's Fury. His crew was already hard at work preparing for departure. Lieutenant Ye Jin, his tactical officer, met him on the bridge. "Orders from Fleet Command," she reported. "We're authorized to use any level of force necessary to protect the Velothi. People." "Any level?" Minho asked. Complete destruction of enemy forces if required, Ye Jin confirmed. The Admiral was very clear about that. Minho nodded. Earth's military had learned hard lessons over the centuries. When dealing with enemies who showed no mercy to civilians, the only effective response was overwhelming force. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Jae Sung was making final adjustments to the ship's weapon systems. Human technology had advanced rapidly over the past century, driven by the need to defend Earth's expanding colonies from various alien threats. "How are the new plasma cannons?" Minho asked over the intercom. "Ready to turn enemy ships into space dust," Jae Sung replied with satisfaction. "The Korthak won't know what hit them." As the hours passed, more ships joined the formation. Earth's Third Fleet was a terrifying sight. Angular warships bristling with weapons, their dark hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. Each ship represented decades of military advancement and the combined fury of humanity's protective instincts. Admiral Ji Hai transferred her command to the flagship Terra's Wrath, a massive dreadnought that served as the fleet's mobile headquarters. As they prepared to enter hyperspace, she received a final message from Earth's president. "The world is watching, Admiral. Bring our people home safely." "We will, sir," Ji Hai replied, "and we'll bring the Valathi some justice too." The fleet entered hyperspace in a coordinated jump that lit up the space around Earth like a second sun. 58 warships vanished into the dimension between dimensions, racing across the galaxy toward a world they had never seen, to save people they had never met. On Earth, news of the deployment spread quickly. Some people questioned why humanity should risk its own soldiers for alien strangers, but most understood the principle at stake. If peaceful civilizations could be destroyed without consequence, then eventually the predators would come for Earth, too. The human fleet traveled through hyperspace for days, covering distances that would take normal ships months to cross. During the journey, the crews studied everything they could about their enemy. The Korthak Empire was large and powerful, but they had grown comfortable fighting weak opponents. They had never fought Deathworlders before. As they neared Valathi space, long-range sensors detected the ongoing siege. The Korthak fleet was positioned around the planet, bombarding orbital installations and terrorizing the population below. "Contact Commander Taemin's advance force," Admiral Ji Hai ordered. The communication came through quickly. "Admiral, this is Commander Taemin. We've engaged the enemy and eliminated their outer pickets, but the main fleet is still intact. They're using the planet as a shield." "Understood. We'll be there in 6 hours. Continue harassing them, but don't get drawn into a major engagement." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, these people really are completely defenseless. The Korthak are bombing civilian targets for fun." Ji Hai's expression hardened. She had hoped the reports were exaggerated, but apparently, the Korthak were exactly as brutal as advertised. "Not for much longer," she replied. "When we arrive, I want the entire fleet to come out of hyperspace in battle formation. No warnings, no negotiations. We hit them with everything we have." As the human fleet prepared to drop back into normal space, every crew member knew they were about to make history. Earth had never deployed such a large force so far from home. But they also knew they were fighting for something important, the principle that innocent people deserved protection. No matter where in the galaxy they lived, the Deathworlders were coming and they were very angry. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm of metal and fury. 58 warships materialized in perfect formation, their weapons already charging and targeting systems locked onto the Korthak vessels surrounding the Valathi homeworld. Admiral Ji Hai stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching as her tactical displays filled with enemy contacts. The Korthak fleet was even larger than their intelligence had suggested. Over 400 ships of various sizes, from small raiders to massive battleships. "My God," whispered Dr. Ye Jin as she studied the readings from the planet below. "They're not just attacking military targets, they're bombing cities, hospitals, schools. This is genocide." On the main screen, They could see the beautiful Velothi world burning. Orbital stations hung in space like broken toys, their twisted metal frames glowing red from internal fires. The planet's surface was scarred with impact craters where Korthak bombs had fallen on defenseless civilians. "Open a channel to the Velothi government," Jihai ordered. Within moments, a scared voice came through their communications system. It was Hyunwoo, speaking from the underground bunker where the Velothi leadership had taken shelter. "This is the Velothi Emergency Command Center. Are you the ones who responded to our distress signal? This is Admiral Jihai of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to help. What's your current situation?" "Terrible," Hyunwoo replied, his voice shaking. "They've been bombing us for 2 days. Our orbital defenses are gone. Millions of our people are dead or hiding underground. We tried to surrender, but they just laughed and kept shooting." Jihai felt her anger growing. The Korthak weren't just conquering the Velothi world. They were enjoying the slaughter. "Can you connect me with your diplomatic leader?" "I'm here," came another voice. It was Sujin, speaking from the same bunker. "I am the voice of our people. Please, you have to understand. We've never fought a war. We don't have weapons or soldiers. We're completely helpless." The words hit the human officers like a physical blow. Captain Minho, standing nearby, clenched his fists in rage. Lieutenant Yejin's face went pale as she imagined what these peaceful beings were suffering. "You're not helpless anymore," Jihai said firmly. "We're going to stop this. Keep your people in the shelters and stay away from the fighting." She cut the communication and turned to her fleet commanders. "All ships, battle formation. We're going to show these butchers what real warriors look like." The human fleet moved into attack position with deadly precision. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had trained for situations like this, outnumbered battles against cruel enemies who threatened innocent lives. The Korthak fleet finally noticed the newcomers. Their commanders had been so focused on terrorizing the planet below that they had ignored the space around them. Now they found themselves facing an unknown enemy that had appeared without warning. Admiral Vrak, the Korthak fleet commander, studied the strange ships on his displays. They were smaller than his battleships, but seemed to move with unusual speed and coordination. He opened a communication channel. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering with a legitimate conquest. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Jihai's response was simple and cold. "No. Then you will die with them," Vrak snarled. "All ships, attack, formation. Destroy the intruders." The Korthak fleet began to turn toward the humans, their massive ships moving slowly into battle positions. They had fought dozens of species over the years and always won through superior numbers and firepower. They expected this fight to be no different. They were about to learn why Earth was called a death world. Captain Min Ho's battle group struck first. Sol's Fury and her escort ships raced toward the nearest Korthak formation at incredible speed. Their weapons opened fire at maximum range, sending streams of plasma and particle beams across space. The first Korthak ship exploded before its crew even realized they were under attack. The second managed to raise its shields, but human weapons punched through them like paper. Within minutes, an entire Korthak squadron was burning wreckage. "Impossible," Admiral Vrak muttered. "No species has weapons that powerful." He was wrong. Human weapons weren't just powerful. They were designed by a species that had spent millennia fighting each other before turning their attention to the stars. Every system was optimized for maximum destruction, every tactic developed through countless battles. Lieutenant Yejin coordinated the fleet's tactical movements from her position on Terra's Wrath. She had studied the Korthak battle formations and identified their weaknesses within minutes of engagement. "Admiral, their command structure is rigid," she reported. "They're not adapting to our attack patterns. If we hit their command ships, the rest will fall into chaos." "Do it," Jihi ordered. Human ships began targeting Korthak command vessels with surgical precision. Each enemy commander who fell left dozens of ships without coordination. easy prey for the disciplined human fleet. Chief Engineer Jae Sung monitored the weapon systems from Seoul's Fury. The new plasma cannons were performing beyond expectations, turning enemy armor into molten metal with each hit. Human engineering, refined through centuries of warfare, was proving its superiority. "Captain," he reported to Minho, "we're cutting through them like they're made of paper. Their shields can't handle our weapon frequencies." On the planet below, Yunwoo and Sujin watched the battle through their remaining sensors. The sight was amazing and terrifying at the same time. The human ships moved like living things, dancing between enemy fire and striking with deadly accuracy. "How are they so good at this?" Sujin asked in wonder. "They're predators," Hyunwoo replied quietly. "Look how they hunt. Every movement is calculated to kill." The Velothi had always believed that intelligence and peaceful cooperation were the highest forms of evolution. Now they were seeing another path, a species that had evolved to be perfect, killers, then chosen to use that ability to protect others. Admiral Vrak realized his fleet was losing badly. In less than an hour, he had lost over 100 ships to an enemy force 1/4 his size. These humans fought with a brutality and skill that the Korthak had never encountered. "Signal the reserve fleets," he ordered desperately. "Tell them we need immediate reinforcement." But the human fleet wasn't giving him time to reorganize. They pressed their attack without mercy, hunting down every Korthak ship that tried to escape or regroup. Dr. Yejin analyzed the enemy tactics from her position on the flagship. "They're breaking apart," she reported to Admiral Ji-hai. "Their formations are collapsing. They've never fought an enemy that could match their firepower." "Because they're cowards," Ji-hai replied. "They only know how to fight people who can't. Fight back." As the battle continued, the humans demonstrated the difference between bullies and warriors. The Korthak had built their empire by attacking the weak. The humans had built their military by preparing to fight the strong. Captain Minho led his ships in pursuit of fleeing Korthak vessels. There would be no escape for the butchers who had bombed civilian targets. Every ship that had participated in the massacre would be destroyed. "Sir," Lieutenant Yejin called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from some of the enemy ships." Minho's expression was grim. "After what they did to those cities? No surrender, no quarter. They wanted to teach the galaxy that peaceful people are helpless. We're going to teach them something different." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Korthak fleet was completely destroyed. Over 400 warships had been reduced to glowing debris drifting through space. The humans had lost only 3 ships, and those had been heavily damaged rather than destroyed. As the last enemy vessel exploded, Admiral Ji-hai opened communications with the Velothi government again. "The immediate threat has been eliminated," she reported. "Your orbital space is secure." We can't believe it," Sujin replied, her voice filled with amazement. "You destroyed them all, 400 ships." "They threatened innocent people," Ji-hai said simply. "That was their mistake." On the planet below, Velothi civilians began emerging from their shelters. They looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere above them, strange aliens from a distant world had saved their entire civilization. But Admiral Ji-hai knew this was just the beginning. The Korthak Empire was vast, with thousands of ships and hundreds of conquered worlds. They wouldn't ignore the destruction of an entire fleet. "Admiral," Dr. Yejin said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting more ships entering the system. It looks like Korthak reinforcements." Ji-hai smiled coldly. "Good. Maybe they'll be more of a challenge than their friends were." The humans had come to save one peaceful world. Now they were going to have to fight an entire empire. It was exactly the kind of fight that Deathworlders lived for. 3 days after the first battle, the Korthak reinforcements arrived in overwhelming numbers. Emperor Krex himself had sent the Second Imperial Fleet, over 800 warships led by his most experienced admiral. They expected to find the mysterious attackers struggling to hold one small planet. Instead, they found something that would give the Korthak Empire nightmares for generations. Admiral Ji-Hai watched the enemy fleet drop out of hyperspace on her tactical displays. The numbers were staggering, more ships than Earth had fought in any single battle. But instead of fear, she felt only cold determination. "Signal General Dong Hyun," she ordered. "Tell him it's time for the main fleet to join us." Within hours, space around the Valathi system filled with human warships. The reinforcements from Earth brought the total to over 200 vessels, including the massive dreadnoughts that served as the backbone of humanity's military power. General Dong Hyun transferred his command to the super dreadnought Incheon's Hammer, a ship so large it could destroy entire fleets by itself. His first meeting with the Valathi leaders would change everything they thought they knew about warfare. Hyun Woo and Su Jin were brought aboard Terra's Wrath under heavy escort. They had never seen the inside of a warship before, and the experience was overwhelming. Every surface was designed for battle. Weapons lockers lined the corridors. Battle stations hummed with deadly energy. "This is how you live?" Su Jin asked in amazement as they walked through the ship. "This is how we survive," Admiral Ji-Hai replied. "Our world taught us that peace only exists when good people have the power to defend it." They entered the main conference room where human officers were studying displays showing the new Korthak fleet. The aliens' tactical formations were impressive in their size, but the humans were already identifying weaknesses. "Your enemy has made a mistake," General Dong Hyun explained to the Valathi delegates. "They think this is about numbers. They don't understand what kind of war they've started." Captain Min-ho activated a holographic display showing the Korthak Empire's territory. Hundreds of star systems were marked in red, representing conquered worlds and enslaved populations. "This isn't just about your planet anymore," he said. "The Korthak Empire has been murdering peaceful civilizations for centuries. We're going to put a stop to it." Hyun Woo studied the human faces around the table. These beings looked similar to his own people, but there was something different in their eyes. A hardness that came from living on a world where only the strong survived. "You're talking about fighting an entire empire," he said nervously. "They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers." "Good," Lieutenant Ye-jin replied with a cold smile. "That means we won't run out of targets." The humans began implementing their battle plan with terrifying efficiency. Chief Engineer Jae-sung worked with Valathi scientists to understand Korthak technology, then systematically developed countermeasures for every weapon system in their arsenal. Their plasma cannons use a frequency modulation we've seen before, he explained to Hyunwoo as they worked in the engineering lab. "Change the shield harmonics to this setting, and their weapons become almost useless." Hyunwoo marveled at how quickly the human engineer solved problems that would have taken Valathi scientists months to figure out. "How do you think so fast? About warfare?" "Practice," Jae-sung replied grimly. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We're very good at it." The next battle began when the Korthak fleet tried to break through human lines to reach the planet. Admiral Korvash, commanding the Imperial reinforcements, was confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm the strange aliens. He was catastrophically wrong. Human ships didn't fight like any enemy the Korthak had encountered before. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, they moved in small groups that struck fast and disappeared before the enemy could respond. It was like fighting shadows. Captain Min-ho led Seoul's Fury in a daring attack on the Korthak flagship. His ship danced between enemy fire, using its superior speed and maneuverability to avoid damage while returning devastating volleys. "Their weapons can't track us properly," Lieutenant Ye-jin reported as she coordinated the tactical display. "Our ships are too fast for their targeting systems." The Korthak had designed their fleet to fight other slow, heavily armored warships. Human vessels were built for speed and hitting power, reflecting the aggressive nature of their creators. As the battle raged, Sujin watched from the bridge of Terra's wrath. She was horrified and fascinated by the humans' approach to warfare. They fought with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. "How do you work together so well?" she asked Admiral Ji-Hai. "Training and trust," the Admiral replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. "Every human on this fleet has spent years learning to fight as part of a team. We know we can depend on each other." The battle lasted for 12 hours. When it ended, the Second Korthak fleet had been completely destroyed. Admiral Korvash's flagship was a burning wreck, drifting through space, and over 700 enemy vessels had been reduced to debris. The humans had lost only 15 ships. General Dong Hyun called another meeting in the conference room. This time, he had invited additional guests, representatives from other peaceful species who had heard about the battle. "The word is spreading," he told the assembled delegates. "Every civilization in this sector now knows that someone is finally standing up to the Korthak Empire." A delegate from the Orion Republic spoke up. "Our world has been paying tribute to the Korthak for 50 years. They take our resources and our young people as slaves. Can you really defeat them?" "We already are defeating them," Admiral Ji-Hai replied. "But we need your help. We need intelligence about their fleet movements, their supply lines, their weaknesses." Ha-Yun-Woo leaned forward. "What about their home worlds? The planets where their leaders live?" Captain Minho smiled grimly. "We're going to visit them very soon." Over the following weeks, human ships began appearing throughout Korthak space. They didn't just defend, they attacked. Supply convoys disappeared, military bases were destroyed, entire fleets vanished without a trace. Chief Engineer Jae Sung worked around the clock to upgrade human weapons with technology borrowed from their new allies. Velothi shield generators were combined with human plasma cannons. Orion sensor arrays were integrated with Terran targeting systems. "We're not just fighting with our own technology anymore," he explained to a gathering of engineers from a dozen species. "We're using the best ideas from everyone who wants to see the Korthak Empire fall." The results were devastating. Human ships became even more deadly, capable of destroying enemy vessels with single shots. Korthak commanders began to panic as their forces were systematically hunted down across the galaxy. Emperor Krex himself finally took notice when the humans destroyed his third fleet in the Zorvak system. The battle had been a massacre. 300 Korthak ships obliterated without inflicting a single casualty on the attackers. "What kind of creatures are these humans?" he demanded of his advisors. "They appear to be from a high-gravity world, with an aggressive ecosystem," replied his chief scientist. "Their entire evolution was shaped by constant warfare and survival pressure." "Deathworlders," the Emperor whispered. He had heard stories of such planets, worlds so hostile that they produced species of unmatched lethality. "Why are they protecting other species?" "Unknown, my lord, but they seem to have declared war on our entire empire." The Emperor looked at the tactical displays showing the steady loss of his fleets. For the first time in centuries, the Korthak Empire was facing an enemy that could match their strength. No, he realized with growing horror, not match it. The humans were stronger. Back in Velothi space, Sujin met with Admiral Ji-Hai in the Admiral's private quarters. The room was simple and functional, with only a few personal items to remind the human of her distant home. "Your people are dying for us," Sujin said quietly. "Why?" "You never knew we existed until we sent that signal." Ji-Hye was quiet for a long moment before answering. "On our world, we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The Korthak have been murdering innocents for centuries. We have the power to stop them, so we will." "Even if it costs you everything?" "Especially then," Ji-Hai replied. "That's what separates us from them. We're willing to sacrifice for others. They only sacrifice others for themselves." As the weeks passed, the balance of power in the galaxy began to shift. The Korthak Empire, which had seemed invincible for generations, was crumbling under the relentless assault of human forces. But Admiral Ji-Hai knew the hardest fighting was still ahead. The Korthak would not surrender peacefully. They would fight to the bitter end, and they would try to take as many innocents with them as possible. The Deathworlders were ready for that fight. They had come to save one peaceful world, but now they were committed to saving them all. Emperor Krex stood in his throne room on the capital world of Corvain, staring at reports that filled him with rage and fear. In just 3 months, the human fleet had destroyed over half of his military forces. Entire sectors of his empire were in open rebellion, protected by the mysterious Deathworlders who seemed to appear wherever the Korthak tried to reassert control. "How many ships do we have left?" he demanded of Admiral Vex, his remaining fleet commander. "Less than 2,000 operational warships, my lord," Vex replied nervously. "The humans have been systematically hunting down our forces across 12 sectors. They don't just defeat us, they completely destroy every ship and base they encounter. And our tribute worlds? Most have stopped sending resources. They know we can't protect them anymore. Some are even joining this new alliance the humans are building." The Emperor's rage boiled over. He had spent his entire reign expanding the empire, crushing dozens of species under his rule. Now a single alien race was undoing centuries of conquest in a matter of months. Meanwhile, Admiral Ji-Hai was implementing the next phase of her strategy from the Bridge of Terra's Wrath. The human fleet had grown to over 300 ships as Earth sent additional reinforcements. But more importantly, they now had allies. The Galactic Liberation Alliance had formed around the human fleet. 27 species had joined, contributing ships, resources, and intelligence. The Velathi provided advanced sensors. The Orion Republic offered fast courier ships. The crystal beings of Nexar Prime contributed their energy weapons technology. "Admiral," reported Dr. Yejin, "we've received intelligence on the location of the Korthak's main shipyards. They're hidden in the Omega Nebula, protected by automated defense platforms." "How many platforms?" Ji-Hai asked. "Over 500, plus whatever fleet elements are stationed there for protection." Captain Minho smiled grimly from his position at the tactical station. "Sounds like a target-rich environment. The attack on the Omega Nebula shipyards would be the largest operation human forces had ever attempted." General Dong Hyun coordinated the assault from his flagship, using detailed intelligence provided by freed slaves who had escaped from the facilities. "These shipyards produce 60% of the Korthak fleet," he explained to the assembled commanders. "Destroy them, and we cripple their ability to replace their losses." The nebula itself provided perfect cover for the approaching fleet. Human ships designed for stealth and speed slipped through the swirling gases undetected. Behind them came vessels from a dozen allied species, all united in their hatred of Korthak oppression. Hyunwoo had volunteered to join the mission, working alongside Chief Engineer Jae-sung to coordinate the technical aspects of the assault. The Velathi scientist had learned much about warfare in the months since his people's rescue. The defense platforms use quantum targeting arrays, he reported as they studied the enemy installations. "But if we can disrupt their communication network, they'll have to target manually." "Can you do it?" Jae-sung asked. "Yes, but someone will have to get very close to their central command station. It's a suicide mission." Jae-sung grinned. "Leave that to us. Humans specialize in impossible missions." The battle began at dawn. Ship time. Captain Minho led Seoul's Fury and 50 other vessels in a direct assault on the outer defense perimeter. The automated platforms opened fire immediately, filling space with energy beams and missile salvos. But the humans had learned to fight smart as well as hard. Lieutenant Yejin had studied the platform targeting protocols and identified their blind spots. Human ships danced through the defensive fire, taking minimal damage while striking back with devastating precision. "Platform Grid 7 is down," she reported as explosions bloomed across the nebula. "Platform Grid 12 is offline. We're opening a corridor for the main assault." General Dong Hyun's heavy ships charged through the gap, their massive guns blazing. The Korthak had designed their defenses to stop conventional fleets, but they had never faced the coordinated fury of Deathworlders and their allies. Deep inside the nebula, the massive shipyards hung in space like metal cities. Thousands of Korthak, workers and their enslaved aliens, labored to build new warships. When the human fleet appeared, panic spread through the facilities. "Attention, Korthak personnel," Admiral Ji-Hai broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender immediately and release all slaves or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to comply." The response was typical Korthak arrogance. "We do not surrender to inferior species. Come and die like the rest of our enemies." "Your choice," Ji-Hai replied coldly. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what happens to slavers." The battle for the shipyards was brutal and decisive. Human weapons, upgraded with technology from their allies, punched through Korthak defenses like they were made of paper. Chief Engineer Jae Sung's modifications to their plasma cannons allowed them to destroy entire facilities with single volleys. But the humans were careful to avoid areas where slaves were held. Rescue teams, led by Captain Min-ho himself, fought through the stations to free thousands of imprisoned beings from dozens of species. "This is incredible," whispered one of the rescued slaves, an elderly being from the Kellen Confederation. "We thought no one would ever come for us." "Someone always comes," Min-ho replied as he cut through the aliens' chains. "You just have to hold on long enough." The destruction of the Omega Nebula shipyards sent shockwaves through the Korthak Empire. Emperor Krex realized that his forces could not stop the human advance. In desperation, he made a decision that would define him as a monster for all history. "If we cannot defeat them," he declared to his remaining admirals, "then we will make them pay such a price that they will regret ever interfering with our empire." The Emperor ordered his remaining fleets to begin systematically destroying every world that had ever supported the Liberation Alliance. Planets that had provided intelligence would be burned. Populations that had cheered human victories would be exterminated. The genocide began in the Tehran system, where the local population had provided fuel and supplies to human ships. Korthak vessels bombed the planet from orbit, killing millions of civilians in the first hours of the attack. News of the massacre reached Admiral Ji-Hai within hours. She stared at the reports of burning cities and murdered families, feeling a cold rage that went beyond anything she had experienced before. "They're targeting civilians because they can't beat us in battle," she said to her staff. "This ends now." She opened a channel to every human ship in the fleet, and her voice carried the full authority of Earth's military power. "All forces, new orders. We are no longer just fighting the Korthak military. We are hunting down every single being who has participated in this empire's crimes. No Korthak world will be safe. No Korthak leader will escape justice. This is total war." The Gao. Human response was swift and merciless. Battle groups spread across Korthak space, seeking out every enemy installation and ship. They showed no mercy to military forces, but carefully protected civilians and liberated slaves wherever they found them. Su Jin, who had joined the fleet, as a diplomatic advisor, watched from the bridge of Terra's Wrath as human ships systematically dismantled the Korthak war machine. "You're destroying their entire civilization," she observed. "No," Admiral Ji-Hai corrected. "We're destroying their ability to harm others. The Korthak people will survive, but their empire of slavery and murder ends today." Captain Min-ho's task. Force penetrated deep into Korthak territory, hunting down the mobile fleets that were carrying out the genocide. One by one, the enemy squadrons were located and destroyed. The hunters had become the hunted. In the engineering sections of human ships, Chief Engineer Jae Sung and his teams worked around the clock to maintain their technological advantage. They had learned to adapt Korthak technology for their own use, turning the enemy's strengths against them. Their shield generators are actually more efficient than ours, he explained to Hyun-woo during one of their joint research sessions. But they never imagined someone would reverse engineer them this quickly. How do you learn so fast? The Velothi scientist asked. Necessity, Jae-sung replied. On our world, you adapt or you die. We've been doing it for millions of years. As the months passed, the Korthak Empire continued to crumble. World after world was liberated. Fleet after fleet was destroyed. The great war machine that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was being systematically dismantled by beings from a single death world. But Emperor Krex still had one card left to play. Deep in the heart of his empire, on the heavily fortified capital world of Corvain, he was preparing for a final battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Deathworlders were coming for him, and he intended to make them pay dearly for their victory. The final battle for Corvain began at dawn on a day that would be remembered throughout the galaxy as Liberation Day. Admiral Ji Hai stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching as the largest fleet in human history approached the Korthak capital. World, over 500 ships flew in perfect formation, not just human vessels but warships from 37 liberated species. The Galactic Liberation Alliance had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined when the Velothi first sent their desperate signal for help. Long-range sensors detect massive orbital defenses, reported Dr. Ye-jin. Energy platforms, missile arrays, and what looks like 300 defensive ships. Emperor Krex is making his last stand, General Dong-hyun observed from his position aboard Incheon's hammer. He knows this is the end. Captain Min-ho smiled grimly as he studied the enemy. Formations on Seoul's Fury. Good. I was hoping he wouldn't surrender quietly. The battle began with a coordinated assault on the outer defensive ring. Human ships, now upgraded with technology from dozens of allied species, tore through Korthak defenses with devastating efficiency. Chief Engineer Jae-sung's latest modifications had created weapon systems that could punch through any armor the enemy possessed. But the Korthak fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. They knew they were facing extinction, and they were determined to take as many attackers with them as possible. They're targeting our allied ships, Lieutenant Ye-jin reported as explosions lit up space around them. Trying to break our formation by hitting the smaller vessels. All human ships protect the allied vessels, Admiral Ji Hai ordered immediately. No one gets left behind. The humans threw themselves between their allies and the enemy fire, absorbing damage meant for weaker ships. It was a demonstration of the principle that had driven them across the galaxy. The strong protect the weak, no matter the cost. On the planet below, Emperor Krex watched the battle from his command center deep beneath the capital city. His advisors begged him to surrender, to spare the civilians on the surface from the coming bombardment. Never, he snarled. If the Empire falls, then everything burns with it. He activated the planet's ultimate weapon, orbital bombardment, platforms that would destroy the capital city and everyone in it, including millions of his own people. It was the final act of a tyrant who preferred universal death to personal defeat. The platforms began to turn toward the planet's surface, preparing to fire. But Admiral Ji Hai had anticipated this moment. Teleport teams, execute Operation Liberation, she commanded. Across the fleet, specially trained assault units materialized directly inside the Korthak command centers. These were soldiers who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission possible, direct combat in the heart of enemy territory. Captain Min-ho led one of the teams, appearing in a flash of light in the Emperor's command bunker. Around him, Korthak, guards raised their weapons, but they were too slow. Human reflexes, honed by evolution on a death world, gave the assault teams an insurmountable advantage. Emperor Krex, Min-ho said as he stood over the defeated tyrant, by the authority of the Galactic Liberation Alliance, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient life. The Emperor looked up at the human soldier with hatred and fear. You think you've won? My empire was eternal. It will rise again. No, Minho replied calmly. It won't. With the Emperor captured and the orbital weapons disabled, the battle for Corvain quickly ended. The remaining Korthak forces surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. The great empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was finally dead. In the weeks that followed, Admiral Jihai faced the enormous task of rebuilding galactic civilization. The Liberation Alliance had grown to include over 100 species, all looking to the humans for leadership and protection. What happens now? Asked Sujin during a meeting of the Alliance leadership. We've destroyed the Korthak Empire, but what do we build in its place? Something better, Jihai replied. A galaxy where peaceful species can thrive without fear of conquest. The solution they developed was elegant in its simplicity. The Terran Protectorate would provide military protection for any peaceful civilization that requested it. In return, member species would contribute to the common defense according to their abilities. Yunwu found himself at the center of a technological revolution as human and allied scientists shared knowledge freely. The combination of human military engineering with peaceful alien innovations created advances that benefited everyone. We're not just building better weapons, he explained to a gathering of researchers from dozens of worlds. We're creating technology that will improve life for everyone in the galaxy. Chief Engineer Jae Sung established technical colleges on liberated worlds, teaching former slaves and conquered peoples how to maintain and improve their own technology. The knowledge that had once been hoarded by empires was now shared freely among allies. General Dong-hyun oversaw the establishment of permanent defense stations throughout former Korthak space. Human patrol fleets, reinforced by allied vessels, began regular sweeps to ensure that no new aggressive empires could rise to threaten peaceful civilizations. The transformation was remarkable. Worlds that had been strip-mined for resources began to recover. Populations that had lived in fear started to rebuild their cultures. Trade networks formed between species that had never been allowed to communicate under Korthak rule. But the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that there were consequences for harming innocence. Word spread quickly through every spacefaring civilization. Earth's humans were watching, and they would cross any distance to protect those who could not protect themselves. Captain Minho, now promoted to Admiral and commanding the 3rd Patrol Fleet, received regular requests for protection from species throughout the galaxy. Earth's response was always the same. Any civilization that threatened innocence would face the full might of humanity's war machine. How many patrol fleets do we have now? Asked Dr. Ye Jin, who had been promoted to Fleet Intelligence Coordinator. 27. Active fleets, Minho replied, studying the galactic map in his ready room. Each one supported by allied vessels from local species. We can respond to threats anywhere in known space within 2 weeks. The Velothi homeworld had become a symbol of the new galactic order, the planet that had nearly been destroyed by Korthak. Aggression was now the diplomatic center of the Protectorate. Beautiful cities rose from the ashes of war, protected by orbital stations crewed by humans and their allies. Su Jin, now serving as the Protectorate's chief diplomatic officer, often reflected on how much had changed since that desperate day when they had sent out their distress signal. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the humans hadn't answered our call? She asked Yunwu as they stood in the memorial garden dedicated to the victims of Korthak oppression. I try not to think about it, he replied quietly. But I know this. The galaxy is a better place, because they did. The memorial garden contained stones from every world that had been liberated by the Alliance. Millions of names were carved into the black granite, representing the beings who had died under Korthak rule. But it also contained a message of hope. Never again will the innocent suffer, while others have the power to help. Emperor Krex lived out his remaining years in a comfortable but secure facility on a neutral world, forced to watch as his former empire was transformed into something he had never imagined possible, a galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. Sometimes, late at night, he would stare out at the stars and wonder how everything had gone so wrong. His empire had seemed invincible, his armies unstoppable. How could one species from a single world have undone centuries of conquest? The answer was simple, though he never understood it. The Korthak had built their empire by preying on the weak. The humans had built their civilization by protecting them. Years passed, and the protectorate continued to grow. New species joined regularly, seeking the security and prosperity that came with human protection. The galaxy was entering a golden age of peace and progress. Admiral Ji-Hai, now in her 70s but still sharp and determined, stood once again on the bridge of Terra's Wrath as it patrolled the outer rim of known space. She had devoted her life to protecting others, and she could see the results in every peaceful world, every thriving colony, every species that no longer lived in fear. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Andromeda sector. Unknown aggressive force threatening the crystalline collective." Ji-Hai smiled. Even after all these years, the call to protect the innocent still stirred her soul. "Set course for Andromeda. Signal the 7th and 12th fleets to rendezvous with us." "Yes, ma'am. Should I send a message to the aggressors?" "Yes," Ji-Hai replied as the great ship turned toward the distant stars. "Tell them that the Deathworlders are coming." The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in the universe. There are those who prey on the weak, and there are those who protect them. The humans had chosen their side long ago, and they would continue to stand guard over peace and innocence for as long as the stars burned. The Velothi distress signal had asked for help. What they had received was the galaxy's eternal guardians, apex predators who had chosen to use their deadly neigh